Top story this week, and it is summit season. The UN summit was in New York this week, and as we know, it's a chance for world leaders to come together in public and private sessions to practice high-level diplomacy, and even more importantly, it's time for fringe world leaders to stand at the podium in the chamber and bring the crazy. And let me tell you, it was a stellar year for Turbo Whack Jobs.
Wasn't that your nickname at school, Turbo Whack Job?
It was. And remember, the bar is set pretty high regarding this. This was the gig that Castro spoke at for 4 straight hours. It was also the gig that made the world stand up and take notice of Hugo Chavez after he claimed that George Bush was the devil who'd made the room smell of sulphur. And collectively, the whole planet said, "Who is that guy? He's fantastic." And this year, there was another breakout star who, and I do not say this lightly, Andy, left the others behind him in his Libyan dust. Step forward, Colonel Gadaffi, you crazy bastard. This was his first speech to the Assembly, despite the fact that he's been in power for 40 years, and he clearly spent all of those 40 years preparing for this moment, because his allocated 15-minute speech finally ended 94 minutes later, 600% of his allowable time. That is outstanding work. He even went through 2 translators in that period. One got exhausted and seemed to suffer a voice breakdown, so another was quickly brought in. He talked so much bullshit, Andy, he went through another human being's voice box. Do you know how hard that is? That's a trained translator. At some point I had to say, "Okay, you win. I know this is my job, but I cannot take any more of this shit."
Is that a UN first?
I think
Must be pretty
so.
close.
It has to be.
I know Anthony Eden went pretty close when he started riffing in Portuguese. I mean, to be fair to Gadaffi, John, both you and I know what it's like to ramble on aimlessly for 90 self-indulgent minutes.
No question.
But,
no question.
You know, but I think we'd have had the decency to have an interval to let the audience stretch their legs and ring home for reassurance.
It's impossible to pick out all the highlights of his speech, Andy. He attacked the UN Security Council for being terrorists. For most speeches, that would be the highlight. But that barely seems worth mentioning when you add that he claimed the Taliban were completely harmless, talked about how jet-lagged he was, speculated about who killed John F. Kennedy, and even asserted that swine flu was man-made to be used as a military weapon. He even, at one point, inexplicably referred to Obama as his son.
Well, that is a story.
That would have been an incredible twist. That's something even the lunatics who don't think Obama was born in the USA hadn't seen coming. It would have been phenomenal if Obama had just had to get up and say, "Okay, here's the thing, Colonel Gadaffi is my father, and we're working through some stuff at the moment."
Who did he say was responsible for the Kennedy assassination?
The problem is, what you're trying to rationalise the kind of sentences he uses there.
Right.
He doesn't really suggest anything. He just meanders on that point.
Right.
So he was just talking about, who had killed JFK, and that was around the same time, I believe, that he was saying, at 11 in the morning when I'm supposed to be awake, I'm sleepy, and at 4 in the afternoon, I'm wide awake. I mean, that's something worth thinking about. No, it isn't. Do you know where you are?
Looking at him, John, it looked like he's had some plastic surgery.
Yeah, it did. It did.
Do you have any confirmation of that from stateside, John?
Well, I don't know what you mean, just because I've just been out in California.
He's had a jowl retwanging just to, tighten up the old cheeks. He's had a boob job, of course, and
that much was obvious.
And he's also now got a tattoo of Marilyn Monroe playing crazy golf on his butt. And if that's not true, Colonel Gadaffi, then sue us.
Or at least come and talk to us. It was only stopped, his speech, when he was handed a note by a UN delegate inviting him to finish. And I'm guessing that sounds more polite than it actually was. I would guess that was just a piece of paper which read, "Shut the up," signed the entire world. And spare a thought in all this for Prime Minister Gordon Brown, who had to follow him. That's a tough slot. That is like Boney M having to go on after Jimi Hendrix. And this was just the desserts to the full menu of mayhem that Gadaffi served up in New York all week. It began when he tried to erect his Bedouin tent on some land owned by Donald Trump that he could sleep in and use for entertaining purposes. That's nice, isn't it? Bring your tent along, invite people over, and put it in the least classy millionaire's back garden. Perfect. But I think he's high water point was that apparently a UN spokesman told the Swiss news agency that Libya had submitted a proposal to the General Assembly calling for the complete dissolution of Switzerland last month. The proposal was never accepted or circulated.
I think it's got to be put to the vote, John. It's supposed to be a democratic organisation. Let the leaders of the world decide on Switzerland.
Apparently it's just because his son got arrested there a couple of years ago. Now, he's taken it upon himself that Switzerland should be wiped off the map. This really put Ahmadinejad to shame, Andy, because he warmed up for his appearance last week in Iran, saying that the Holocaust was a lie based on unprovable and mythical claim. Boring. Gaddafi's raised the game now, Andy. Anyone can denounce Israel and ask that it be wiped off the map. We've heard that loads of times. Not many people can call for the erasing of a frankly bemused Switzerland.
I mean, Switzerland's all very well, but would people really miss it? You know?
No.
Is it that outlandish a suggestion?
Definitely not. His explanation for it was saying Switzerland's full of French people that should be living in France and German people that should be living in Germany.
And quite a lot of gold that needs to find its way home as well. Some very generous words from Hugo Chavez, who I thought it was a delightful touch, hoping that Obama won't be assassinated. I thought it was lovely for him to say that out loud. Because, I mean, we're all thinking it, but, you know, it's good that...
So to actually commit to it. You know, in this area of talking around things,
because, I mean...
if you can't think of anything nice to say about someone, just wish that they're not assassinated.
And he also said that the smell of sulphur has left the United Nations.
That's right.
And again, that's lovely. He said it now smells of hope.
Oh.
And you have to have hope in your heart. I thought he was about to break into song.
Well, he nearly did. He played a kind of imaginary guitar at one point. Like going doing, 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 doing. And then his final message was, let's be a tiny bit better and a tiny bit less selfish. That's an achievable goal. I mean, an almost imperceptible amount better.